This is a very important day because this is a day that shows that the job creators that my Republican friends are always talking about are asking them to pass a transportation bill by June 30th. Don't you agree with that?
Yes.
Now here's the thing. Invest in infrastructure, that's exactly right. It means jobs, it means businesses. It means that we fix the 70,000 bridges that are deficient. It means we fix the 50% of the roads that are not up to standard. It means that we make reforms, taking 90 programs down to 30 programs. It means safety for our families. And so as we meet here today, and we all say that we want to see businesses succeed and workers get work, and we know that there are enough unemployed construction workers to fill 10 or 12 Super Bowl stadiums, there is no excuse for inaction, not one excuse. We passed a strong bipartisan bill in the Senate. When Inhofe and Boxer can agree, that is a strong signal. You know? When Bernie Sanders can agree with David Vitter on a bill, that's a strong signal. And I could go on and on. We have the bill. We have the support of the business community demonstrated here today overwhelmingly. And we have bipartisan support. I'm going to be candid. There is only one group standing in the way of a bill. There is only one group of people standing in the way of 3 million jobs. Only one group of people standing in the way of thousands and thousands of businesses who tell me they're struggling right now because of a series of extensions without funding. And that group of people that's standing in the way of jobs and business, those are the House Republicans. And that's the facts. And that's the truth. And I'm speaking from my heart, and I know, I tell you the truth, that that is the case. We have been negotiating in good faith with the conferees. We've exchanged back and forth proposals on various areas of the bill. There's not much controversy there. In 5 minutes, Speaker Boehner could pick up the phone and tell his conferees to finish work, and we would have a bill on the president's desk in 3 days. I want to acknowledge the groups who are here, and then I'm going to introduce my colleagues and then 2 speakers from the business community. And raise your hand. The National Ready Mix Concrete Association. And you are not them, Chuck, but
We're right here.
But we're very proud. And you did get those wonderful trucks behind us. That's what it's about. We're talking about jobs. The American Society of Civil Engineers, raise your hands. The National Stone, Sand, and Gravel. Associated General Contractors, some of you are out there, come up here. National Association of Manufacturers, American Council of Engineering Companies, Laborers International, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, American Trucking Association, Association of Equipment Manufacturers, AASHTO, which stands for the Association of Highway and Transit Officials, the American Road and Transportation Builders, the Associated Equipment Distributors, the AAA. Now, what you might have noticed is that's a group of organizations that tend to support Republicans. I don't think I'm giving out any secret about that. So I hope the Republican House members listen to this, see this, and understand that they are standing in the way of progress. It is my pleasure to call on 2 colleagues who are in a great big rush because they have to chair the Senate and do other things. If it's okay, I have Shaheen, Begich, Schumer, Landrieu, Kerry, Blumenthal, Coons. That's the order. So please, up next, Jeanne, Shaheen.
Thank you very much, Senator Boxer. And thank you for your leadership. She's been working tirelessly to try and get this bill done. You know, I was on a call this morning back to New Hampshire with some representatives of the construction industry, town manager, people who are depending on this transportation legislation and funding for the work that we need to do in the state. And the representative from the construction industry said something that I think we all know, but it's important to remind our colleagues who are holding this up in the House. And that is that his business can't plan on a 3-month cycle. They need some certainty. That's what this Senate bill does. You know, we're starting our construction season in New Hampshire, and we have a pretty short construction season. If we don't get this funding now, every project in the pipeline is going to get delayed. We are not going to be able to keep people working. This is a program that has been working for decades, the way we fund transportation in this country at the federal level. It's worked for our communities, it's worked for our states, it's worked for the private sector. The only people who don't seem to understand that it's working and we need to get this done are the members of the House who are holding this up. I thank everybody who's here today to point out just how important this bill is to putting people back to work and ensuring that we invest in our roads and our bridges and our mass transit. Thank you all very much. We need to get this done.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator Boxer. I'm Mark Begich from Alaska. If you think New Hampshire has a short construction season, Alaska has a very short construction season. We're half over. And we have a bill that may expire in 15 days. I will tell you, as 5.5 years as a former mayor of Anchorage, which ran the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which dealt with this federal money, which when that money came to us, we figured out what projects, where it was going, how to move it forward. Honestly, when I was on that side of the equation, I never understood why we had to keep changing the program, getting projects out, because we couldn't get the money out of DC. Now being here after 4 years, after 9 extensions, I see exactly what the problem is. This is a simple bill, bipartisan bill, 74 Democrats, Republicans on the Senate voting together to move this economy forward, a bill that brings in 3 million jobs, saving and creating. It's an incredible opportunity for us. But every day we delay is a day a contractor, a local government, a state government can't get these projects into the field. On top of that, every time you hear the word extension, that just means it's going to cost taxpayers more money, pure and simple. Because every time you delay a project, the costs go up or the company can't mobilize. End result is taxpayers pay the end result. This is a bill that literally, as Senator Boxer said, a small group in the House Republican majority is holding this hostage for who knows what. But at the end of the day, Americans need these jobs, Alaskans need these jobs, and it is incumbent upon us to move this bill forward because every bit of infrastructure we do will help the private sector expand because we build roads, we build bridges, we do the infrastructure, they take the next step. So this bill is critical. It is time to get it done and have no more extensions and just do the deal and close it up and have it extend for the next 2 to 3 years. And the best part of this, it's paid for. It is paid for. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mark. And first, I think all of us want to give a real round of applause to Chairwoman Boxer, who has been relentless. If this gets done, it's going to be because of her. Anyway, I want to make 2 points. First, our economy is beginning to create jobs. What's the #1 thing holding the economy back? It's construction jobs. Unemployment in the construction trades is huge. Construction is always the way we get out of these recessions, and that's why this bill is so important in terms of us getting the economy moving. It's also not just spending that goes away. It leaves lasting investments that make our economy stronger over decades in terms of infrastructure. Second point, why is this not happening? Let's call it as it is. It's not all Republicans. No, we had great Republican support in the Senate. Senator Inhofe teamed up with Senator Boxer to get the bill done. Nor is it all Republicans in the House. My guess is Speaker Boehner wants to get this done. But there are 100 people, militants, radicals, extremists, who actually believe the federal government should not be involved in highway building. This is something that is just against the American grain. You know who first proposed the federal government build highways? Henry Clay. It was before there were any Republicans. He was a Whig, the previous incarnation of Republicans, and he proposed internal improvements which built highways federally aided over the Appalachian Mountains and opened up what was then the far west, Ohio and Kentucky. So they are going against American history. They're going against American jobs. We need America to unite and tell those 100 they cannot hold up progress. Our economy depends on it. Our workers depend on it. And this is what America is all about. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank Senator Boxer for her extraordinary leadership and her willingness to be a compromiser, a negotiator with Jim Inhofe to bring a strong 2-year transportation bill to the Congress, to the Senate, only to have it scuttled by House Republicans. If House Republicans were concerned about falling job numbers, they should be grabbing this bill and running it to the Speaker's desk to pass it, because this is, in essence, a jobs bill. It will put hundreds of thousands of people to work. So we are a little confused as to why the Republicans in the House are sitting on their hands while jobs are being lost. In addition to the basic transportation infrastructure that is in this bill, there's also the Restore Act, which will put the Gulf Coast back to work, passed on the floor of the Senate with Republicans and Democrats. Again, 74 votes for the Restore Act. It will create, in addition to the jobs in the underlying transportation bill, almost 100,000 new jobs along the Gulf Coast from Texas to Florida, restoring our coastline, building hurricane protection, preparing for the next storms, and using not taxpayer money, using the penalty money that BP is going to pay. So we're basically saving the taxpayer that effort by using BP's money to put people to work. And the final thing that I want to say is, if the Republicans in the House are so concerned about the international trade deficit or competing with China, they complain a lot about that, I hear them. Why don't they pass a bill that invests in infrastructure in America? They are traveling overseas every time there's a break. They're seeing what Brazil is doing. They're seeing what India is doing. They're seeing what China is doing. But yet they come home and vote against their own districts on basic transportation. These are not new projects. This is not new theory. This is basically the bread and butter of the infrastructure of our country. And they say no to their own people, yet run overseas and tout the international trade. It really is a shame. And they should hang their heads in shame for not moving this bill forward. This is not a partisan coming from the Senate. This is a bipartisan bill with one of the more liberal members and one of the more conservative members meeting to compromise for what's in the best interest of the American people. So I hope that we will put our backs up and accelerate our voice to make sure this gets done. And thank you, Senator Boxer.
I want to join in thanking Barbara Boxer for her extraordinary leadership on this bill. $1 billion invested in the infrastructure of our country represents at least 27,000, several hundred jobs, up to 35,000 jobs. Do the math. There's $109 billion over the life of this bill. That represents several million jobs for Americans. For every construction worker, for every family in America today sitting around a kitchen table wondering how they're going to pay the next bill, how they keep the house, how they send the kid to college, and they're wondering about the job. This is the legislation. These folks could go to work tomorrow if this bill were to be passed. 77 United States senators voted for this legislation. That's a landslide in today's United States Senate. 77 Republicans, I thought it was 74. 74, excuse me. Slightly less than the landslide I just gave you. 74 senators by any standard today. That's an enormous vote in the Senate, and it represents a bipartisan initiative to do what's right for America. Let me tell you why it's right for America. There isn't a state in our country where people don't have bridges that are deemed to be unsafe. We saw a bridge fall in the Mississippi, and people were killed. We have unsafe roads, unsafe tunnels. What a small minority in the House of Representatives is doing is putting more lives at risk in the United States, as well as being willing to say that for political reasons, they're willing to hold up the ability of America to go back to work. Some of our colleagues have said, let's tell it like it is. I'll tell it like it is. I have heard from some Republicans that there are people arguing they shouldn't pass this bill because it might help President Obama, because people may go back to work and you'll see an uptick in the numbers of people employed. It is an utter disgrace that a minority of folks in the House of Representatives, extremists, would say they're for the American people at the same time as they refuse to put them to work tomorrow. This season is a short season, folks. In so many states, New England, elsewhere, we can't work all year round. This is the time where people need to do these projects to make our country competitive. China today is spending 9% of its GDP on infrastructure. Europe is spending 5% of GDP on infrastructure. The United States of America, that sent people to the moon, that broke the barriers, that has literally, under Dwight Eisenhower, a Republican, built the interstate highway system, the United States of America is only investing 2%. We're falling behind. And the reason is because there are extremists in the House of Representatives unwilling to accept their responsibility and do what's right for Americans. America wants to go back to work. We want to compete with the rest of the world. We want to lead the rest of the world, and you have to invest in our future to do it. This bill is that investment. We need to make it happen now.
Thank you, Senator Boxer, for your amazing leadership on this bill, which I want to remind folks came out of your committee last November, unanimously, out of the Environment and Public Works Committee of the United States Senate, a bipartisan bill with conservative Republicans and progressive Democrats, a unanimous bill out of their committee. We have waited, not for weeks, not for months, but from last year to this year, month after month after month, we have waited for that bill to get to the floor, and a price was extracted. We had to vote on the floor on an amendment that would have ended the federal highway program, sponsored by one of the most extreme Republicans in the Senate. It still came out of the Senate by an overwhelming vote. Today, if you drive north on 95, the backbone of the interstate highway system on the East Coast, you'll see in my home state of Delaware, there's 150 people at work, improving safety, improving interconnections, working at the intersection of Route 1 and the intersection of Route 202. I spoke to our Secretary of Transportation just earlier today. $200 million worth of construction work and 150 jobs already underway, fronted by our state, will come to a screeching halt if this is not extended. We need to put people back to work. We need to keep people working. And my question is, where's the speed bump? Where's the roadblock? It's not in these folks. It's not in the folks ready with equipment and materials and people ready, willing, and able to go to work. It's not in my state, where our state's already fronted the money. We've got folks already at work. It's right there. It's in the House of Representatives, where if Democrats and responsible Republicans under the leadership of the Speaker would come together, we could pass this bill and get Americans back to work. Where else in America do you have the Chamber of Commerce and the AFL-CIO, the National Association of Manufacturers and the laborers, agreeing on a bill, a bipartisan majority out of the Senate, and yet a small band of extremists insist on holding it and holding it and holding it longer until it suffocates the opportunities for growth, for jobs, and opportunity. Thank you for your leadership, Senator Boxer. I just want to know how the extremists in the House Republican caucus can say with a clear conscience that they aren't a roadblock to progress in this country. Mr. Speaker, pass this bill.
Well said. Everyone well said. And I think I'm the last. except for the folks in back of us, who are the real heroes here. They are the ones who are going to make it happen when this bill is passed. And let me just make a prediction. If the House of Representatives listens to America, it will pass this bill. In my short time here in Washington, the biggest surprise to me has been the disconnect between America and its capital. And the question now will be, will the Capitol and Congress listen to America? Will America wake up to what's happening here and the holding hostage of our economy by that small group of extremists and militants and radicals who are stopping this bill? All across this country, we need to have this tableau repeated. This picture has to be repeated across America so that America understands and the Capitol listens that we need this investment, that jobs depend on what Congress does, that it is doable and within reach and achievable. The hopelessness that America feels now can be solved if the Capitol listens to America. Let me just say finally, thank you to Barbara Boxer for her leadership on this truly bipartisan bill. Jobs in America is what we are about here today, and it has to be the Capitol's work. Thank you to all of the folks who are here and their leadership, and I'm proud to be here today with you, Senator Boxer. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Now we're going to hear from two fabulous people who have been working so hard to get the message to the House side of the Capitol. And our first is Mr. Jack Basso, the Chief Operating Officer, American Association of Highway and Transit Officials, otherwise known as AASHTO. Welcome, Jack Basso.
Well, good afternoon, Senator Boxer, and I want to thank Senators Boxer and Inhofe in particular for their really dynamic and wonderful leadership in moving this bill forward, and the 74 members of the House, including the Senate, including them, who passed this bill overwhelmingly. Their unwavering efforts have been successful in bringing a bill to the floor of the Senate and concluding the business over there. I also want to thank Bill Childs, the Vice Chair of the National Ready Mix Concrete Association, his members, for making the equipment available that you see behind you today that represents the substantive kinds of things that we do. Senator Boxer, it's my pleasure actually to deliver to you today a letter signed and delivered to the House this morning from 17 members of the National Associations here in Washington, who call for two things. One, for immediate passage by June 30th of a conference report on a bipartisan bill, and secondly, raising our strong objection to any kind of a 6-month extension that would take us beyond this point in time. First of all, we want to see completion of this bill. And we are at the height of the construction season, and uncertainty will lead to states not being able to move work for this critically needed and thus work and support jobs. It's a critical time in America. The unemployment rate in the construction industry is 14%. It's time to act. Again, I thank you, Senator, and Senator Inhofe, for your leadership, and I ask the House in particular, who I also have worked with closely, to get this bill done.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Well, this is hot off the press. It's a very clear letter, and the amazing organizations who signed it, they should be heard. Because I will tell you this, and I say this really from my heart. If the Speaker of the House walks away from this, the Speaker is walking away from America. Because these organizations reflect a broad cross-section of America. You know, everything from the Associated Equipment Dealers to the Association of Equipment Manufacturers to the Laborers International to the Public Transportation Association to the American Highway Users to the American Truckers to the civil engineers, the operating engineers, moving and storage, concrete pavement. I left a few out. This is a cross-section of America. These aren't Democrats or Republicans. These are Americans These are Americans who work in business and who give their labor to these important projects. Let me call on to close this, and then I'll have the final remarks. Mr. Bill Childs, the CEO of Chaney Enterprises in Waldorf, Maryland. He's the vice chairman of the National Ready Mix Concrete Association. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Boxer, and thank all of you for being here today. We have a very, very important message that needs to be clearly heard by Congress. I serve as president and CEO of a local company engaged in ready-mix concrete production and sand and gravel production. We know what the lack of the funding of this bill feels like. In addition to my company and our people, I'm here today representing the National Ready-Mix Concrete Association and the 150,000 plus people and members of our association engaged in the ready-mix concrete industry. I'm here to request Congress to pass a new transportation bill now. It's imperative this be done before June 30th. Nearly 3 years have passed without legislation and budget to fund our critical infrastructure needs. Every day that goes by without a new transportation bill affects every one of us, and we experience each of the following. The competitive position in a world economy of the United States is waning. Less and less confidence in our economy. Severe congestion, which wastes time, impedes our competitive capability, increases our precious energy consumption, and releases unnecessary CO2 emissions into our atmosphere. Hundreds of thousands of workers in the construction industry are out of work. Millions of workers will be put back to work with this legislation passed. Fewer and fewer transportation projects, and last but certainly not least, unsafe roads and bridges throughout the United States, not just in a few states, a major, major public issue. Currently, the transportation construction industry has more than double the national unemployment rate. Over 17% of the U.S. roads in our nation are in poor condition, and nearly a quarter of our nation's bridges are in dire need of repair. It has been 985 days and 9 extensions since our last comprehensive surface transportation bill expired. Since this expiration, our nation's transportation program has been limping along, and our roads and highways and bridges have suffered dramatically. The lack of attention to our nation's commerce arteries is quickly making our nation's transportation system nearly impossible to navigate and obsolete, thus jeopardizing our nation's international competitiveness. In order to turn these trends around, we need a new surface transportation now. It is critical this be achieved by June 30th. Congress, I hope you're listening. You need to foster and boost United States commerce, grow the American economy, and facilitate job creation, reinstilling the much-needed confidence in our country and its economy. This can all be achieved by passing a new transportation bill now. You're not serving your constituents by getting sidelined with partisan bickering and arguing. Now is the time to put America back on a sound, competitive economic, fiscal footing. We can achieve this with a new transportation bill. Congress, you can make an enormous difference in the positive recovery of our economy by making an investment in this great nation, putting millions of Americans back to work by passing a transportation bill this country desperately needs and needs done by June 30th. We need a new transportation bill, and we need it now. You represent us. We want you to vote for us now. Thank you all very, very much.
Well, let me say about Mr. Childs, he's right. Congress can do this. The Senate has done it. The House is standing in the way. And the message today is we need a bill by June 30th. And anyone who stands in the way of that, just know the people of America are going to know who exactly you are. Because we're not talking about 1,000 jobs or 6,000 jobs. We're talking about 3 million jobs. We're not talking about 500 businesses. We're talking about thousands of businesses. And what you see in this group are Democrats and Republicans. and we are united. We need to get this bill done. Now what's going to happen is we're going to give the signal, and these trucks that we want to be doing work for the American people are going to do a little bit of a loop around and send a bit of a message as they go. And then I'm going to take questions for you. So if any press, I know you want to ask me some questions, I'll be delighted to stay and answer those. So why don't you give the signal? We'll send the trucks on the way. We thank them for this. We love them.